And welcome back to the LMS show. This book, I saw this article and there you go reading the paper again. And I saw this article with this young lady, the vitamin D deficiency epidemic, and especially for black people. Powerful book, getting a lot of responses. In fact, when we say this, it's all over the place. Young lady did a lot of research. Your name, my friend?
Emily Allison-Francis.
And with that name again, one more time, you don't mind.
Emily Allison-Francis.
Give her a big hand. Miss Francis, how are you?
I'm pretty fine, thank you. And I have been taking my vitamin D. And its cofactors.
Okay. Very important. Why do you take your vitamin D?
Vitamin D is very, very important. There's a lot of information on vitamin D, and it is groundbreaking information, especially for people of color, dark-skinned people. More than 50% of the world population is deficient in vitamin D. Blacks, whites, everybody. However, blacks are very, very deficient. We, according to recent studies, we're about 95%. About 95% of the black population in the United States is deficient in vitamin D. And scientists have linked the many diseases that disproportionately affect blacks to vitamin D deficiency.
Is diabetes, right?
Diabetes, the book has a long list of them. Diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, autism, asthma, you name it. A whole long list on the book. Cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, mental illness, arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, pregnancy-related complications, autism, respiratory infections, asthma, fibromyalgia, and other diseases. And this is recent information. Very recent information.
You got this. You did a lot of research. First of all, because you're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor. Okay, I'm a nutritionist.
Okay. And you got studies from the other doctors too from this, right?
Yes. The studies that were used to write this book were done all over the world. I used a number of medical journals that contain studies that were done in different parts of the world to compile the information that I place in this book. And the book deals with everybody. It throws light on the illnesses in everybody and how vitamin D may help all ethnic groups.
This is all ethnic groups because I remember
emphasis was placed on blacks, on people with melanin in their skin.
Okay.
Because melanin was shown to block the amount of sunlight that we absorb, that gets the amount of sunlight that gets under the skin to produce vitamin D. Many people ask, oh, so melanin, it's a bad thing. Melanin is a good thing because melanin helps to protect the body. Melanin prevents DNA damage from radiation, from excessive radiation from the sun. So when people live near to the equator, or even in summertime in the United States, we do not have to fear. People with dark skin do not have to be fearful about getting their bodies damaged
but also
from
to
overexposure.
Also to the climate. No, I mean like if you're in a darker, not dark, in a lower climate, let's say like Florida, but look like you said, the higher you go, it's more.
The higher you go, the higher the latitude.
Okay.
The greater the latitude, the greater the deficiency. For example, above 35 degrees latitude was shown to be the danger zone for many of the diseases that affect people. And 35 degrees north latitude places us about Atlanta, in the region of Atlanta. And then above that, the higher we go, the less intense the rays of the sun, and the greater the tendency to suffer from vitamin D deficiency, and therefore the greater the tendency for many of the diseases that affect us.
How long did you put this book together? How many?
This book takes approximately 5 years to write.
Yes. Okay.
I did research. During the time I did the research, I was an adjunct professor at Medgar Evers College. And as a matter of fact, the teaching that I did at Medgar Evers College served as a kind of springboard for the writing of this book, because I worked with students in the library doing research and assisting them to write their research paper, because I worked as a reference librarian. And during the time I helped them, certain pieces of information kept coming out, showing how disproportionately ill, how dark-skinned people were suffering from the disease, how disproportionately diseases were affecting dark-skinned.
Question I'd like to ask you: you have some big supporters in your family too. I know I went to a fair. Your husband was there. He's one of your biggest supporters.
Yes, he is. Yes, my whole family assisted. My daughter served as the editor, the chief editor for the book. She has expertise in this region. She has a doctorate from Columbia University in writing and other areas. So she was very instrumental in helping me to organize the information.
You had recipes in there. What kind of recipes?
Yes, I have recipes in there.
Ooh.
Because foods, whole foods, are cofactors of vitamin D. We do not get vitamin D.
You don't get it in foods.
From foods, not to any great extent.
Okay.
We should not depend on foods to supply vitamin D. The main source is the sun, but we are not spending enough time in the sun.
No, because look like right now we're doing show like it's getting
and most
dark.
of the year we do not have the sun.
We don't. 5 o'clock, and they say you're in New York. We're doing a show from New York. It's dark.
Even people in tropical countries are suffering from vitamin D related diseases because they do not spend enough time in the sun. And the darker the complexion, the more sun exposure, because the greater the sunblock from melanin. And many people are being misled by information that is out there, because many sources mention that if you spend 10 to 15 minutes in the sun, you will make enough vitamin D to take you through the day.
Is that true?
To supply you for the day.
It
is true for Caucasians.
Okay.
But for dark-skinned people, it is not so. Dark-skinned people need to spend about 2 to 3 hours in the sun per day. And compare that with 10 to 15 or 20 minutes for Caucasian, you see. And most of the time, the dark-skinned people are the ones who are hiding from the sun. And the Caucasians are the ones who are spending more time in the sun.
Oh, are they?
And on top of that, many dark-skinned people believe that if they go in the sun, if they stay too long in the sun, they will get skin cancer. But dark-skinned people have the natural sunblock, so they do not need to worry about getting skin cancer. Many people make the mistake of putting the sunscreen lotion on their bodies on top of the natural sunblock. They put
dark-skinned people.
Yeah, dark-skinned people have been using it. And as a matter of fact, medical experts have been advising dark-skinned people to apply sunscreen lotion to their bodies. You know, so people need to get the information because we need the sun more, and the darker the skin, the more time we need in the sun. But I advise people that they should not depend on the sun because we're just not spending enough time in the sun. We should take vitamin D supplements. Vitamin D was found to be antiparasitic, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory. Vitamin D was found to be a very, very powerful cancer prevention agent. And not only that, when people with cancer are being treated, vitamin D helps the cancer medication to work better. Almost all the cells of the body, a good number of the cells of the body have landing pads for vitamin D known as vitamin D receptors. And children as well as adults should make sure to be optimized in vitamin D because it is so essential. When you think of how many of our young people are getting depressed in school, as getting asthma attack, and it was found to be effective against asthma. Vitamin D deficiency is linked to autism, and the black population have higher cases of autism. Many young women are very deficient in vitamin D, and that has been affecting the brains of their children. As a matter of fact, just recently, a very important research was published in Australia. It was done in Australia, and they found that children who are vitamin D deficient had problems with language development. And this wasn't surprising because vitamin D has a very powerful effect on the brain, the development of the brains, the cells of the brains.
On that note, I would like to thank you very much for joining us today on the LMS show. Wasn't that some powerful information I tell you?
Yes.
Give it up. As a great Curtis Mayfield would say in the Superfly, the lady I will have arrived. Superfly. You are super duper. And we thank you so much for sharing this. And you do this from the heart, right?
Very much. And thank you for having me. And I hope that we will spread the information, get the information out. And the anti-inflammatory foods are in here, herbs, spices, and whole foods that we need to consume.
Thank you.
This was specially prepared
thank you so much,
for our population.
And you're welcome back anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Francis. Give it up. And we're going to end it off with another song. Thank you so much. And we'll see you soon. That's so nice.